Thank you, Misty, very much, and Mark, thank you for the invitation, and for the folks that are hosting tonight. What a beautiful home. Thank you for having me. A little bit of background. As Misty said, I was an Air Force pilot. I flew in a lot of missions around the world. Never was inclined to have a political perspective. The military teaches you not to be politically active, not to have a party preference, not to voice your opinions. And then one day in 1995, I was called by the then Clinton White House to come interview to be the president's military aide and carry the nuclear football. I was squadron commander in Travis Air Force Base, Northern California. I met my beautiful wife, Nicole. She's a Sacramento girl. And the phone rang in my office, and I answered it, and it was the White. They said they were the White House. I thought it was the guys down the hall pulling my leg, so I hung up on them. And it was in fact the White House, and they called back again. So flying squadrons like a fraternity, so I thought the guys were playing tricks on me, and it was in fact the White House. So they flew me out to Washington D.C. and I interviewed. A 3-day, very intensive interview process to be the president's military aide, and was offered the job. And the military aide position, to place it into history, goes back to George Washington, actually. He's been a military aide ever since George Washington. And during the 1950s and early 1960s, with the advent of nuclear weapons, the military aide became the carrier of the nuclear football, which is a large black satchel which accompanies the president no matter where he goes, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, around the world. It's the means by which the president can launch nuclear weapons, retaliate with nuclear weapons, conduct his duties as our commander-in-chief, no matter where he is in the world. And I was that guy for 2 years. 2 very interesting years in the Clinton White House, you can probably imagine. I had an office in the White House and a bedroom in the White House, and was by his side for 2 years and saw a lot of things. 1996 is when I got there, so that's the re-election campaign. I left just prior to the impeachment in '98, so I was there during Monica Lewinsky and Paula Jones and Whitewater and Ken Starr and Hillary and all kinds of things. So I saw a lot of things that really bothered me as an Air Force officer. Couldn't really say anything about it. I left the White House and went to the Air Force Academy and was the commander at the Air Force Academy for 3 years, and retired in 2001 to pursue a job as an airline pilot. Quite frankly, I didn't have politics or writing in my blood at the time. And then 9/11 happened. I'm a Delta pilot. I still fly for Delta at LAX, so if you're going to the East Coast, if you hear my name on the PA, let me know and I'll take care of you. I'll make sure my landing's nice and smooth, most of the time. Every once in a while I screw up, but not generally speaking. So I saw 9/11 happened, and I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, flying for Delta, and I realized that the fruits or the lack of attention on President Bill Clinton's part in my time there had led us to the biggest attack on our own shores in history. And I realized that in my time in the White House, that we were monitoring Al-Qaeda, we were watching bin Laden. We knew there was a potential for an attack. In my time, President Clinton chose not to pull the trigger on at least 8 occasions that I can recall. So I wrote my first book, Dereliction of Duty, about President Bill Clinton, which enamored me to him, I'm sure. The Christmas cards stopped coming, amazingly, in 2003 after the book came out. I hit the New York Times bestseller list, was on for 6 months, to the New York Times chagrin. I might add that they had to carry the book and talk about it. And my writing career, speaking career, at that point kind of took off. I mean, I guess it's proof that you can not be talented at all and write a bestseller as an Air Force guy. But I wrote another book about John Kerry and Democrats, and was able to work with John O'Neill and the Swift Boat veterans and defeat John Kerry in 2004. So, and since then I've been writing, and my most recent book, my publisher approached me a couple of years ago and said, why don't you compare Barack Obama and Bill Clinton? And I thought, what a great idea. And I thought, well, Clinton's going to come out on the wrong end of this stick, but in retrospect and in the book I realized that actually Clinton comes out looking pretty good compared to Barack Obama. And I'm really concerned as a former Air Force officer, as a father of 3 young children, as a California resident. I live in Thousand Oaks. I'm concerned with where we are going as a country, where we are going as a military, and who we have elected as our commander-in-chief, and I pray that we will not re-elect him. Because I don't think our country can survive. I really don't. There is an inherent disconnect with the liberal mindset, the ideology, and the military and conservatism. And I saw it very clearly in the Clinton White House. They are raised, they are born of the 1960s ideology, the anti-Vietnam War ideology, the anti-military ideology. The military to the liberal is an enigma. They don't understand martial values, they don't understand discipline, they sure don't understand people who want to serve their country and die for their country. I saw that very clearly at the Clinton White House, and it's even more pronounced in the Obama White House. In fact, I recall one time in my time at the White House, I was talking to a young staffer, because most of the people surrounding the Clintons were young staffers. They were Monica Lewinsky and younger in some cases, and Ivy League graduates, and they were there because they had helped the Clintons get elected and re-elected. And this young lady was talking to me about the military service and why I was doing this. And she was asking me, she's probably 24, 25, and I'm probably 40, lieutenant colonel, and she was asking me why I had been forced to join the military. And I said, well, I actually had volunteered to serve the military. She goes, well, no jail record, no. I said, no. I said, she goes, with a high school degree? I said, no. As a matter of fact, I not only have my bachelor's, but I'm a master's in business administration. And she couldn't believe that a person would volunteer to serve the military with an education. And that spoke volumes to me about their philosophy, their perspective of us, their perception of us, and it goes even deeper with Barack Obama. In my most recent book, when I compare Obama and Clinton, I go back and look at Obama's his childhood, why he believes what he believes, why he does the things that he does, and he's a narcissist in chief. He has no understanding of the military. He has no understanding of national security affairs. And have you ever heard him, I mean, this is one thing that galls me as a military guy. Have you ever heard him say we or us or our?
No. It's about liberty and freedom.
I, never. It's always I or me. When we, I'll give him this. He does like to use drones and kill bad guys. And I applaud that. In fact, if you're the #2 guy at Al-Qaeda, your career span, your resume is about this long, because you're not going to survive very long. And I do applaud that. I think he's used drones and the SEALs and the Delta Force in a very efficient manner. But that's a tactic. That's not a strategy or a policy. Killing bad guys with drones is a tactic. And that's not how you win a war. I think Obama is so self-congratulatory. In fact, and I hate to use, and I'll be very polite here, when we did kill bin Laden, and Obama took all the credit for it, and God bless the SEALs, and God bless the guy that pulled the trigger, and we'll probably never know his name or where he's from, but I bet you he never buys a beer again as long as he lives. You know, it was all about Obama, and I remember at the time Secretary Bob Gates, who's an Air Force guy, who's now left, but I remember him approaching the Obama administration, and I'm going to parse my words here very carefully, but they asked him about the media, how they should handle the media, and he turned to them and says, how about you shut the F up? Because they are still leaking high-value information that puts Americans' lives on the line every single day. And that is not how you win a war. That's not how you defeat the enemy. That is not how you counteract what I believe is this century's, our generation's, greatest doctrinal threat. If you liken it to last century with Nazism and fascism and Marxism, this Islamofascism we face is our generation's biggest threat. And Obama and his minions don't seem to understand that. It's all about getting him reelected. And he needs to be quiet about how we do those kind of things, because the guys and girls on the ground are the ones getting it done, not Barack Obama. I have friends that were involved in the Bin Laden raid, and I will tell you this, that Obama basically wiped his hands. He said, if this thing goes south, it's on you. And when it went north, it was successful. It was Obama's idea. And that kind of thing, that's a very loud and clear message to the guys and girls on the ground in uniform, that their commander-in-chief does not have their back, that he in fact is using them. And that is very emblematic of liberals and radicals in how they perceive the U.S. military. During my writing in 2006, I embedded myself in Iraq, and I served. I was not serving, I was actually writing and observing the Marine Corps and the U.S. Army just west of Baghdad in the summer of 2006. Now, if I can give you any tips about tourism in Baghdad and Iraq, don't go in the summertime. Extremely hot, very oppressive. They have this talcum powder-like sand that rises up, and you can't breathe. And during the daytime, it gets to like 125 or 130 degrees, and it's just oppressive. And our guys and girls are going out every single day with 45 pounds of Kevlar vests and flak vests, and crawling into unair-conditioned Humvees and driving out on patrol looking for bad guys and killing bad guys. And I was just, as an Air Force guy, just really amazed. You know, my experience has been at 35,000 feet, and I never had been on the ground in a war. And I was just incredibly impressed with the professionalism and the morale and the courage of our guys and girls in uniform. And it taught, I went over there essentially to find out, to actually take the pulse of the U.S. military. If you recall back in 2006, George Bush, everything was anti-Bush. The war, you know, Bush lied, people died. The war's going badly. We're going to lose the war. Pull out. Harry Reid and Dick Durbin and at the time Ted Kennedy were all calling for us to get out of there and pull and run. And so I went over there to see what was actually going on. And I can tell you, report to you, that I've never been more impressed with fellow Americans than I was in my time that summer in 2006. I expected morale issues and attitude problems and just a lack of esprit de corps, and I found exactly the opposite. I found a military that was brilliant and motivated. And I interviewed 450 soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, and I didn't find anybody that didn't think we should have been over there, that wasn't proud to be there, and it just made my heart feel good to be an American. And I guarantee you that Barack Obama doesn't understand a single element of that. I don't know that Mitt Romney does, but I can guarantee you that Barack Obama does not. And I know our guys and girls in uniform do not support him, do not want him reelected. And I've got friends that are over there on their 4th and 5th tours, Afghanistan currently, and the morale, they are over there doing the right things, but they're not over there serving Barack Obama. They're serving the nation, you, the flag, and the US of A, and not Barack Obama. I think there's a very important delineation when he says they're serving me. They're not serving him. I never served Bill Clinton. I served the office, I served the White House, I served my Air Force and my nation. And that's a very, very clear line that you have to draw as a military officer working for a commander-in-chief doesn't really get it. There are so many things going on right now with Barack Obama that I want currently. Tomorrow's going to be a huge day with the Supreme Court healthcare thing, with the Eric Holder thing going on, and the fact that the Republicans are going after the leaks about the White House using the leaks to prop up Obama's national security resume.
Yeah.
You know what? If the American public doesn't get it, it's really kind of sad, because Obama can't focus on the economy. He doesn't want to focus on the economy. He wants us to look at his national security record, because he killed bin Laden. It's just so much more to it. It's Iran, it's North Korea, Iraq's going south now. We pulled out of there. We're going to be pulling out of Afghanistan here pretty soon. It's Pakistan. There are so many things going on that the average American doesn't understand in terms of national security, that just killing one terrorist in his house in Pakistan does not alleviate, does not fix. The military is spread thin. We have members of the U.S. military in 144 countries tonight as we speak right now. 144 countries. We are becoming those of you who recall Jimmy Carter, the hollow force of the 1970s. We're becoming the hollow force of the 2012s, because our military is tired, they're poor, they have had no equipment upgrades or modernization in several years, and they're spread thin and they're tired. They want to come home. And I think that's Obama's legacy also. He's becoming the Jimmy Carter of our generation. So there are so many things I want to talk about. I would love to answer questions. I can go a million different directions with President Clinton and Obama and my time in the Air Force and what's going on right now. So please, I'm going to open it up and just fire away. Yes, sir.
Do you know the current status of that doctor in Pakistan that provided with the DNA?
Right.
I know he's a privilege. Why was he not granted asylum? Why was he not taken out?
You know, here, this is one of those very finite disconnects between how liberals look at foreign policy and how we look at foreign policy, and the conservatives look at foreign policy, or libertarians look at foreign policy. Liberals are always in a defensive mode. We want to reach out to them. And I'm a military guy. I'm an aggressive. Let's go after them. Let's eliminate the enemy and come home. And this guy helped us out.
Yeah.
He turned us on to, and it wasn't Obama he turned it on to. It was the CIA and the U.S. military. They happened to tell Obama, hey, we got the guy, which happened at least 8 times in my time with Clinton. Clinton never would pull a trigger, so God bless Obama for doing that. However, Obama didn't pull the trigger. It was the Marines and the SEALs and the U.S. Air Force who flew the helicopters. It was a whole bunch of guys. And Obama, again, kind of wiped his hands of the whole thing until it was successful. So if you look at Obama, the way Obama handles the Pakistanis, the Iranians, the North Koreans, we buy the North Koreans off with food, like they're going to stop their nuclear development. It's not going to work. It's appeasement. And the Iranian thing, he's not going to go after them. We know tonight, we know where those sites are in Iran. So does Israel. We could do that tomorrow in about 6 hours. And so could Israel. But he won't let them do it. He doesn't want us to do it. That shows you where we're going with our nation.
So are they just going to let him rock? They're just going to leave him there in jail?
Well, Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State. I've got a lot of Hillary stories. I wouldn't trust her as far as I could throw her, and I trust Obama even less. I think they're going to let him. He's going to be a victim of the détente with Pakistan.
What do you think is going to happen with Iran? Because I know Netanyahu feels the same way you do. He doesn't trust Obama further than he could throw him. And yet Obama said, wait until after the election. And there's no guarantee after the election that Obama would throw him under the bus.
No, Obama's not going to do anything about it.
Yeah.
I mean, the U.S. relations with Israel under Obama are abysmal. They're horrible.
So what do you think Netanyahu's going to do?
Well, he's going to have to do something. I think that sooner or later he's going to have to do something. Now, hopefully, it's going to be us. Like I said, I have friends in the Pentagon who know where the targets are. We can just do this in a matter of a few hours.
But Obama won't.
He won't do it, especially right now during an election season. I mean,
does Israel have the firepower to take it out?
They have the firepower. It's a logistical thing. They have F-16s. We provided them, and they're very capable. Their Air Force is probably second to us, as a matter of fact. But they have to overfly. They got to fly a long way, and nobody's going to let, you know, Egypt's not going to overfly Egypt. I mean, Turkey's not going to overfly Turkey. They have to go a long way around.
They already have a base in Azerbaijan.
Well, it's our base actually. So that's another sticky wicket that Obama's got himself into. Israel has paid for access to that base.
Right.
That's a U.S. base that we're using. So for them to launch from Azerbaijan would be us being complicit. Bless you. Bless you. Would be us being complicit with them using Azerbaijan. So otherwise, the Israelis have to have tankers, airborne tankers, come all the way around, which we did when we hit Libya back in the 80s under Reagan. We had to go all the way around the long way to hit Libya because France said you can't ever fly our sovereign airspace. Yeah. So it's a very complicated situation. We could do it very easily, aircraft carriers. Israel is going to be a much more complicated scenario. They will do it if they have to, I believe. I would hope it wouldn't come down to that, but it's looking like that's inevitable.
But they have the bombs to actually penetrate deep enough?
Well, that's a really good question, Mark. We are developing the bombs that can get. We have 5,000-pound bunker busters right now that cannot get all the way into the, we believe, the underground places in Iran. We are developing one that will get down there. Whether or not we have sold that to Israel or given that to Israel, that's a huge question. I can't answer that question. We have it. Do they have it? Would Obama give that to them? Doubtful. Doubtful.
Wow.
We have it.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
I was reading the other day that during the G20 conference, the Russian Air Force were exercising over the Arctic and penetrating into Canadian and Alaskan airspace over a period of about 4 days. Would that have any play into dissuading the United States from becoming involved in an attack?
No, but that brings up a really good issue, a really good point. During the Cold War, we had NORAD. We were able to defend our own borders. We would launch fighters and bombers to defend North American continent. Because the military is stressed so thin now, and we've done no modernization, we have not been able to meet those obligations. The Air Force just failed an inspection and is no longer able to meet the NORAD requirements to be able to defend because we're all overseas. We're overseas. We're mostly in the Middle East, the Air Force is. So we have winnowed down the Air Force capability to respond to a threat that comes over the border. Because we don't feel that to be a significant threat apparently, but it still is. As the Russia and China upgrades their military, we're on the downslope. And today's economy, obviously, the cuts that DoD is taking are phenomenal. It's probably some of it's required, but at what expense? And again, my philosophy is if you've got military forces in 144 countries, bring some of them back. Are we really concerned about, I don't know, Somalia or wherever the heck we are? You know, we're Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. There's some places we've got a lot of metal out there. We've got a lot of capability. So now we can't defend our own airspace. We have no-fly zones in Libya and Iraq. We don't have a no-fly zone over the United States. That seems to me a little bit counterintuitive. Yes, sir.
I have a question about the U.S. military. We're supposed to be the United States of America. We have a low-grade, non-violent cultural war going on between the two parties. And I'm just wondering, Obama is so divisive. He's obviously, I mean, the Tea Party came about just in the last few years because of his divisiveness. I'm just wondering if that, from your point of view, whether that's extending to the U.S. military and how that whole division, if you will, or his creation of that division is affecting the military.
That's a really good question. The military, much like other governmental organizations, is political. It's much more political today than it was when I was in. In fact, I left because it was getting too political. I didn't like the fact that General Patton couldn't be promoted today. We were promoting politicians into places in the places of power in the Pentagon. If you were to poll the military anonymously, you would probably get like an 80-20 conservative versus liberal bent. If you were to poll senior leadership of the Pentagon, you'll probably get a 50-50 bent, because many of them get promoted because they support one party or the other, which does not bode well for war fighting or national security projection, or Sun Tzu, a great military philosopher, talked about, if you don't understand your inward politics, you'll never understand what's going on outside. And that's where we are today. There's so many examples in the Pentagon today that just drive me crazy. That we've become very politicized. So is the State Department. So is, it's rampant. And I will also tell you this, I am a Republican, but I will tell you that in my time in the White House, I saw just as much graft, not just as much, almost as much graft and corruption on the right as I saw on the left. It's rampant. I think that we have the moral high ground as conservatives, but not all Republicans carry that forward. They're rhinos. I mean, there are some really good Republicans in the House and the Senate, but not all of them are. And I have been let down by many people on the right who I trusted and believed in. The same thing holds true in the Pentagon. There are some great generals. There's some, General Petraeus, phenomenal, very intellectual warfighter, great guy. There's just as many guys that I would not want to go to war with anymore. And here, it's kind of hard to speak to this audience and not go into this, but there's a bond, there's a trust, there's a loyalty when you go to war. When you go to war for your nation, when you fully believe in what you're doing, when you have a wingman who is there to save your life, when you are in a tank, or you have a tank commander, or you're in a foxhole. They say there's no atheists in foxhole. That's exactly the case. There's no atheists in cockpits either. And you have this, whether you know the guy or girl or not, there is a trust and a loyalty and just a belief that, hey, if things go bad, that person's there for me. I don't think that anybody on the left understands that, number one. And I think a lot of people in the Pentagon have forgotten it, number two. You can't go to war looking over your shoulder at the person who might not be there to support you. And it goes from the lowliest one-striper, Navy, Army, Air Force, Marine, all the way up to the four-star. If that person's not there, then things don't go well. That's why the SEALs are so cool. That's why, so they're so good. That's why Air Force fighter pilots are so good. The Delta Force is so good, because they know that guys got their back, or that girl, or whomever. And liberals just cannot fathom that trust and that respect. And it sounds tawdry and it sounds a little bit cheap, but when you go to war, I tell you what, it's real. It is totally real. Yes, sir.
Getting back to something that you said you were doing, carrying the nuclear football, is there a process, a procedure, are there codes? How does that work as far as when you're with the president? Do you have to have it with you, or is it?
Yeah, it's a satchel, a black satchel that accompanies me and him, no matter where he is, 24/7, and I did it for 2 years. So, and it's the means by which he can communicate to the Pentagon and retaliate or respond or initiate any kind of attack. It doesn't have to be nuclear, it can be any kind of attack. So we can be over the air, we can be over Africa at 35,000 feet. He could be, through me, he could be talking to the Pentagon and say, I want to launch missiles at North Korea or China or whatever. So it actually was born under President JFK during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Kennedy realized he didn't have the ability 24 hours a day to respond to Russia or Soviet Union or Cuba if something should happen. There was a military aid, but he was going home every night. So they said, well, you need to have a guy around with the football. It's codes, it's targets. The president carries a little credit card size document. It looks like a credit card. We call it the biscuit because you break it open and he authenticates himself to the Pentagon. In fact, in President Clinton's time, he lost that. Never happened before, and probably has never happened since then. But President Clinton lost that when I was there, which was a little alarming.
Where
Can you tell that story, Buzz?
Yeah, the story about Elizabeth Close. Yeah. During the timing is everything. And in 1997, January 21st, 1997, I was on President Clinton's schedule to be the first person to come brief him that morning. I mean, it was about, and every once in a while we would brief him about the nuclear codes, and I would ask questions. Do you have any questions about how the process works, or any questions about the targeting? Any questions at all about how this thing works? So the morning I walk into the White House, this is January 21st, and I walk into the Oval Office, and I walk past Betty Curry's desk. Betty Curry's the president's secretary at the time. She's not in yet, but I see the White House, I see the Washington Post, and it says, "Sex Scandal Rocks White House." So I know it's not going to be a good day in the White House. So I actually walk into the Oval Office. This is like 7 o'clock in the morning, and I see President Clinton's got his hand in his head in his hands. He's been up all night. He just looks like a ghost. He's all bloodshot. His eyes are all bloodshot. I said, "Sir, is this not a good time?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's not a good time." I said, "I'll come back later." So that's when I came back and I said, "Okay, sir, it's time to, can I see your codes? Can I see the codes?" And he's still, he's, "Yeah, I don't know where they are." I said, "What do you mean you don't know where they are?" He said, "Oh, they're upstairs somewhere." So I said, "They're upstairs? Okay. Well, can I call upstairs?" And he goes, yeah, go ahead and call upstairs." So we called upstairs, and they weren't upstairs. So then I went back to him and said, "Sir, we can't seem to find them. Do you know, how long has it been since you've seen him?" And he couldn't remember. And I said, "Well, has it been days?" And he goes, "I don't know." I said, "Weeks?" And he goes, "I don't know." I said, "You can't remember the last time you saw the nuclear codes, the most important military document in the history of mankind? You have no idea where the nuclear codes are?" He goes, "Yeah, I don't know." So he was more, this is what I wrote about in my first book, because this is very telling. He was more concerned that not get to the press than he was that he had misplaced the nuclear codes to the nuclear capability of the United States of America for God knows how long. So I had to call the Pentagon and say, he lost them. And there was no process for recreating them. So they had to, scramble, and so we don't know how long it was that he didn't have the means to respond militarily or nuclear-wise with the nuclear codes. Because I had the football, but I didn't have his codes. So I couldn't help him with that. So, and again, he didn't want the press to know, so it didn't make the press till my first book came out. Why? Because we kept it quiet. Because I was still in the military. I couldn't say. Yeah, I couldn't say.
You weren't leaking.
I wasn't leaking. Exactly right. I was being loyal to the office of the presidency.
So, can you tell the golf course story?
The golf course story. Yeah, when I first got to the White House, 96, I was wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, and one of my first deals with President Clinton was we were going to go to a professional golf tournament in Manassas, Virginia. This is 1996, like July or August 1996. I just started the job. And we went to this professional golf tournament, and no matter where he went, I went. So we're at the golf tournament, and I was also his call screener. So when he was away from the White House, if a phone call came in, whether it be from Hillary or Monica or Jesse Jackson or whomever who would call, they would cut the call through me first. So we're at the golf tournament. It was the U.S. professionals playing against the world. It's the President's Cup. It was the U.S. against the world. So at the same time, ironically, Saddam Hussein is invading Kurdistan and annihilating thousands and thousands of Kurds with gas. He was killing Kurds. The tens of thousands of people were being killed. So the U.S. had launched fighters and bombers. We had pledged our support to Kurdistan and the Kurds, and we had launched fighters and bombers over northern Iraq to repel the Republican Guard and to protect the Kurds. And on this day at the golf tournament, I got a phone call from Sandy Burglar, supervisor, who was trying to talk to me, trying to get me to get to the president, because I was the guy taking the phone call, saying, to get the president and say, we got fighters in the air under the cover of darkness. We got to go now. We got to drop bombs. We got to kill people now, or it's going to go by the wayside. So I approached the president and was watching the golf, and he said, no, I don't want to be bothered right now. Come back later. So I went back to Berger and said, no, he don't want to talk to you right now. And Berger said, you know, this is, and these are my peers in the cockpits. I knew the guys that were actually flying this stuff. So I went back to Berger, and he said, you got to talk to him. We only got a couple more hours under of darkness. The Kurds are being slaughtered. You got to get President Clinton to get the go-ahead. So I went back to President Clinton and said, sir, we got the guys in the air. It's under cover of darkness. We need to go now or forever. Or just not do it. He goes, I don't want to talk to him. So I went back to Berger again. So I'm the guy getting shot in the middle of both these guys. Clinton's getting perturbed because I'm interrupting him watching Tiger Woods, and Berger's getting perturbed because he can't get the president to say yes or no. And I didn't really care whether it was a yes or no. I wanted a decision. I mean, you know, we got people dying. Let's make a decision about whether or not we're going to do this. So the third time, I went back and talked to Berger, and he goes, you got to get him to make a decision. So I go back to President Clinton the third time. Now he's interviewing with Jim Nance on CBS. He's actually doing an interview with Jim Nance, and I kind of pull him aside and say, hey, listen, sir, you know, Mr. President, we've got to make a decision about this, or just cancel it. You know, yes or no? He goes, I'll call him on the way back to the White House. So he never did make a decision. We never did launch the attack. The Kurds were, you know, just slaughtered. And Clinton wanted to watch the golf tournament, which the gentleman was talking to, and that was my first inclination to the man we had elected and we're getting ready to re-elect as our commander-in-chief. Which is why, in my mind, it was dereliction of duty. Yeah, Misty.
So it sounds like you don't have a lot of confidence in Obama, as least amount of confidence with Obama as Clinton. What is the greatest risk? What is the biggest danger in your opinion right now, if Obama is re-elected?
Oh, well, there's so many. I mean, geez. I really think that the question was, what's the greatest risk right now if we re-elect Obama? Well, I mean, there's so many. It's such a, as the Air Force guy would say, target-rich environment. There are so many things out there that he's screwing up royally. I would say his handling or mishandling of Iran and Iraq. You know, if you haven't been paying attention, Iraq is going south big time, and we never should have pulled out of Iraq. I mean, and he did that because he had promised to do that in his election, and he also did that at the same time he was ramping up operations in Afghanistan. He called the surge, but when he announced the surge in Afghanistan, he also announced the withdrawal date. So we got out of Iraq. We're coming out of Afghanistan now. That's going to create a huge vacuum. Huge vacuum.
But in Iraq, they Malaki had said, we're not going to give you protection, or I forget the word. Well,
there was a protection of forces thing but we didn't really have to listen to him. You know, we elected Maliki. He's a puppet, and so was Karzai is a puppet. We got out of Iraq because Obama wanted to get out of Iraq, and we left so many resources there. You know, we're still in Korea, and we're still in Germany, and we're still in Japan. You know, we should still be in Iraq and Afghanistan. You know, we won the peace in Korea and Japan and Germany, and we didn't leave. We won the peace in Iraq and we left, and we're going to win the peace in Afghanistan and we're going to leave. And it's going to become a huge vacuum. It may not be readily apparent right now, but 10 years from now, this is going to be Obama's Afghanistan. It's going to be Obama's Vietnam. We're going to look back and say, what a huge mistake this was. You know, to invest this blood and treasure, and then to pull out.
But can I ask play
Sure.
devil's advocate just
Sure.
tad? Because every time I hear from someone that's actually over there, I am appalled. For example, did you know that you're actually promoted in Afghanistan if you're a commander based on how much you spend? So they are building these cold buildings in villages that don't know anything about refrigeration. They're just doing stuff.
But whose fault is that? It's not the military's fault. It's because the State Department's created it. So you have, the facilities we built, when I went to Iraq, this is 2006, we've been there for 3 years, I was amazed at what we didn't know about that country. Saddam Hussein raped that country. I saw two of his palaces. I went inside two of his palaces. It was like Donald Trump on acid. The gold and the marble, but you walk out the front door and there's sewage running down the dirt road. I mean, he had just totally raped that country. State Department came in and said, okay, we're going to fix this, but then they got bombs that we're out of here. So you fix it, military, you build the stuff now. You build the schools, you build the hospitals, you build the roads. And they did, we did. Same thing's happening in Afghanistan. If you are a colonel who wants to make it to general, the State Department says, we're going to promote you if you build this school over here. What are you going to do? You're going to build a school. You're going to throw $50 million at you, you're going to build a school.
But it's just terribly mismanaged. It just seems like we're just pissing money away.
Well, we are. But we have to. But we voted for that as American people. Our Congress and Senate voted to go into Afghanistan and to Iraq. We voted for that. And we put the military there and said, you guys win it. And they're winning it. So we can't now say we shouldn't have gone. Our Congress and Senate voted for it. We did that. Not those guys. We did that. Hillary Clinton voted for it. So did John Kerry. He voted for it. John Edwards voted for it. You can't now say, oops, what a mistake. The military screwed up. No, we did. We voted for that. And whether it was Bush or Clinton was the first person to create the Iraqi Regime Change Act in 1998. He was the one that called for regime change in Iraq. The House and Senate voted for that overwhelmingly in 1998. He didn't do anything about it, but Bush did. And in 2003, when we voted to go to war in Iraq, we voted overwhelmingly with the House and Senate. And people like Hillary Clinton voted and said, yes, let's go into Iraq. And now they want to go back and say, that wasn't my fault. Yeah, it was. Yeah, you said go. You guys said go, win it. And they did. And now we're pulling back out saying, what a mess. Well, it is a mess, but that's our mess. We created that mess. And we're electing people now who are making it even, or exacerbating it. We've lost a lot of people, and we spent a lot of money in those places, and just to go ahead and pull out now is a huge mistake. Yes, sir?
I've heard Obama, since he became president, say in 2 or 3 major speeches that his goal long-term is to get rid completely of our nuclear deterrent forces. Yes. Do you think he's just playing to the left wing, or if he is re-elected, God forbid, that's really something?
No, he's working on it. We've come down dramatically. Yeah, he's working on it. He wrote a paper, I talked about this in my most recent book, he wrote a paper when he was at Columbia that calls for all nuclear weapons in the U.S. to go away. And he's working on it. He is drawing down the U.S. nuclear arsenal. We don't need them all, obviously. But Russia and China's are not drawing down commensurate with us. We are drawing down dramatically. So it's all part of the Saul Alinsky approach to how I'm going to be the president and commander-in-chief. Yes, sir?
In a best-case scenario, Romney wins. Is Afghanistan winnable?
You know what? It's not winnable. It's tieable, which I think is the best we can hope for right now. A tie is a win right now. And if we come out of there, we have just opened the doors to, I mean, there's such a thing, I'm going to step back here and be very basic for a second. There's such a thing as right and wrong, good and evil. And I've seen good and evil in fighting combat. When I was in Iraq, I saw a lot of evil. And the Taliban is evil. And Al-Qaeda is evil. And they will do things to people that are just abhorrent. So is it winnable? Not in the terms that we're going to have a signing of a treaty on the aircraft carrier. Never going to happen in Afghanistan. They're not only third world, they're fourth world tribal people. They want to sell their poppies and be left alone. But if we have a presence there that precludes terrorist elements from going back in there and taking back over the government and abusing their people and subjugating women again, then we should be there.
If Romney wins, should we have another surge?
I don't think a surge is necessary. I just think it's like, I'm a football fan. And if you just hold the line, you know, you don't try to go for the long bomb. You just kind of ground it out on the ground, running game. And I think that's where we are now. I mean, I've got buddies that are over there that say Iraq and Afghanistan are night and day. You know, Iraq had education and some semblance of civilization. The Afghanis it's just, you know, it's a stone age. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful here, but this is where we're coming from here. You're buying off. I mean, we gain support from the Afghani tribal chieftains by paying them off. That's all they understand. You know, so in Iraq you could actually introduce democracy or some semblance of democracy and say, you guys have self-determination, you guys can vote. You know. In Afghanistan, all they understand is what's in it for me tomorrow. And so, now, winnable? No. If we can sustain just some kind of tie forever, that's what I would vote for. Yes, sir.
A lot of people lose the bigger picture, and that's Iran. You know what country is immediately west of Iran? It's Iraq. The country that's immediately east of Iran is Afghanistan. We're losing a huge logistical advantage.
Yes.
By removing ourselves from those two.
Yeah, let me, and this is Buzz Patterson's perspective on the world in the Middle East. And I don't know whether President Bush thought this or knew this or understood this when we went into Iraq, but in my estimation, it was a brilliant idea from this point alone. You can't kill every terrorist in the world. You can't stop this ideology overnight. You can't convince them that what we have is better than what they have. What you can do is you can go into the heart of their region and introduce the freedoms that we have, that we take for granted, as a matter of fact. They've never had. In Iraq, 5,000 years of subjugation and tyrannical rulers. And so what I thought was brilliant about Bush going in there was, okay, we're going to introduce some semblance of democracy right smack dab in the middle. Right. You know, to the south is Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. To the north is Jordan, Syria. You know, to the east is Iraq. You say, okay, we're going to put, you guys get to vote. Women can go to school. Kids can go to school and not be harmed. We're going to give you blue jeans and DVDs and internet and knock yourself out. And I thought that was brilliant because that spills over borders. If the Syrians see that, and the Iranians see that, and the Kuwaitis see that, they go, hey.
It's grassroots.
It's grassroots. It's exactly right. And so what Obama did was circumvent that by saying we're coming back out again. So we gave them this little kernel of freedom and said, okay, you guys have your own, go for it. And then we didn't stay there to see it through. But if you understand terrorism and this global doctrinal fight we fight, you cannot defeat Islamofascism one person at a time. Taking out bin Laden did absolutely zero. Taking out Zawahiri will do zero because there are millions of terrorist wannabes. They're very intellectual, they're very intelligent, they use the internet phenomenally. You can't go after all of them. What you can do is offer the people who follow them an alternative, which is freedom and democracy and a chance to determine your own, which is what we fought for with the British. And we had that in Iraq, and we're trying to do that in Afghanistan, but now we're pulling out of there and saying, okay, you know, we failed. Yes, sir.
How well is our protection going, like the Star Wars type protection where we can shoot a nuclear missile out of the air? Has our enemy, you might say, cracked or hidden their, have they offset our protection? Are we okay in that way?
Well, not in terms of nuclear ballistic missiles. We are really good at tactical. We have Patriot missile batteries that can knock that stuff down pretty quickly. The Star Wars thing is, believe it or not, is still being researched and is still not operational. Yeah, it's we have the capability of doing a lot of things, but we don't have. And that's one of the things that I dealt with at the White House in the '90s was, okay, if we get a launch alert from say China, how long do we have to respond? And it's not long. And can we knock it down, or do we have to retaliate? And it's a matter of, I can't tell you that it's classified, but I can tell you it's less than your average sitcom. So we can't knock them down. All they can right now, we can't. So because we can't weaponize space, NASA now is a Muslim outreach organization. So I would not feel real confident in that. And I would also tell you that, knowing what I know, the more significant threat, the more real-time threat, is a dirty bomb or something coming across from Mexico or Canada, or a suitcase nuke that could easily be smuggled in. The good thing is those things are high maintenance. So there's a time, a short shelf life on those things. So you can't, for example, if the Soviet Union had one they sold in the black market 10 years ago, it's no longer good. That's the good thing. But the other thing was it'd be pretty easy to duplicate.
What do you think's going on in Egypt? Do you think that was a seed of freedom, or do you think?
I think the Arab Spring is a disaster, and I think the Muslim Brotherhood taking over is not a good thing. It's scary.
Can the military hold Egypt now, despite?
Can the Egyptian military?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's going to be very tumultuous there.
Because Obama's nuking them right now.
No, the Obama's administration supported the Muslim Brotherhood, and they be careful what you wish for.
He created it.
Well, he didn't create them, but he definitely opened the door for them. Kind of like Jimmy Carter did with Ayatollah Khomeini in Iran back in '79. He opened the door and said, "Okay, we're not going to suppress this. We're not going to support Mubarak. Come on in." Same thing is true in Libya. That would probably fall to the Muslim Brotherhood also, and they're not happy people. They're not going to be easy to get along with. They want Sharia law. They're going to insist on Sharia law. They despise Israel. It's just not going to be. Mubarak was at least we knew what he was all about, and we could know that he was going to not. He was an ally, basically. Predictable. He did a lot of horrible things to his people, but we knew what we had in Mubarak. We have no idea. The wild card and Muslim, well, it's going to be bad. Yes, Hussein was too. Yeah, and Maliki in Iraq is becoming another Hussein. He's reaching out to the Iranians now because we've left. So he needs a power broker, and it's going to be exactly. Yes, sir.
I completely agree with you that Bush's introduction to Iraq and the Middle East, and Israel, of the democratic process and introducing those principles was good. But in Egypt, that's not what was done. We don't have a democracy in this country. We have a constitutional republic.
Right.
Okay. They're just electing a person. There's no constitution. So this is mob rule in Egypt, essentially.
It is.
It is.
They don't have the foundations that we have. They don't have they have the Quran. That's their constitution, is the Quran. That's their foundation. And there's obviously different. There are moderate elements of that, but the Salafist view of the Quran is Sharia law, and the Muslim Brotherhood adheres to that. So yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask you about the threat of infiltration of Islamism into our military, and if you can address that question.
Well, we've become so politically correct in the military that we now can't say "In God We Trust" or we can't say prayers at funerals. So yeah, it's there's actually I'm an Air Force. I'm not an Air Force Academy graduate, but my last job was at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, which is now it's a huge fire there tonight. But there's a guy who lives in Colorado Springs. His name is Mikey Weinstein. He spends every waking moment attacking the U.S. military on its Christian or in Judeo-Christian values. And he has been so successful that now we can no longer say prayers at funerals for the military. So, and again, the Pentagon becomes politically correct that they don't want to offend. So now we have Muslim clerics in the military. When I was at the Air Force Academy, we had a Wiccan chaplain. No, he had to be allowed the same access to the facilities that the rabbi had, or the Catholic priest had, or the pastor had. We had to have a Wiccan military chaplain. So it's, I mean, another reason why I'm sitting here and not over in Iraq. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I would like to know why is our military in so many different places in the world, and do we need to be there?
We're in so many places in the world. A lot of it goes back to the Cold War, and we were trying to counter the Soviet Union, and of course there was the philosophy back in the 1960s that was, you know, if the Soviet Union went to Vietnam, so did we, was containment. And we have a lot of still a lot of former Cold War thinking in the Pentagon. There's a saying that the generals always fight the last war, not the next war. And that's very true, especially in procurement and how we do things with the military. In my estimation, we're far too wide-flung. And the other side of that coin, however, is that the places that we are at, in, for example, Germany and Japan and Korea, we are a huge boon to their economy. They don't want us to close the bases because we are a cash cow for the local economy. So when you try to close a base, I saw this when I was at the Pentagon in the 90s, you try to close a base in Germany, the effect that has on that local town is huge in terms of the economy, the dollars.
The Germans found that out in Heidelberg as they moved USA headquarters to Wiesbaden.
Yes. I mean, every time an American pulls a base out, that area just, and it's the same thing in the United States. We close a military base here, it's huge. Yeah. I mean, you look at the military bases in California that used to be here, in Norton Air Force Base, and a place, you know, Mare Island Naval Base. I mean, when you pull a military base out, the economy suffers. Huge. It's the same overseas. So the Koreans and the Japanese and the Germans don't want us to leave because we are pumping in bucks, big time bucks. But we are so far flung now. I would say let's take a look at this and bring a lot of this stuff back. I mean, because right now we can't sustain what we are trying to do. Yes, sir.
In case Hillary's the nominee in 2016, a couple of good Hillary stories for us.
Absolutely. In fact, I got another book on Hillary that I'm just waiting to write. Hillary Clinton.
Poor Chelsea.
Yeah, poor Chelsea, actually. You know, I've got to be honest with you. I was there for 2 years, and I actually got along with both of them just fine. Him, much more so than her. He was a guy that was very gregarious, would tell stories and jokes, and the kind of guy you want to have over your house for a barbecue, but keep him away from your wife.
And your daughter.
And your daughter, especially your daughter. Yeah. Hillary was much more, no, she's much more Nazi-like, I'd probably say. When she was around, the trains went on time. You know, Bill wasn't late to anything. He'd eat healthily. When she wasn't around, it was a frat party. But she's very intelligent also. I just don't, you know, when I first got the job, the guy I replaced told me, he said, if I can tell you nothing else, don't cross her because you will not survive that. And unfortunately, I didn't cross her for 2 years. Because I saw her just chew up people and spit them out on a daily basis, and her husband included.
But you're going too soon.
What's that?
You're going too soon. You're going to cross her soon.
Well, eventually you're going to.
Yes.
Yeah, eventually you're going to.
Well, I mean, if you write the book.
Well, I'd be happy to at that point in time. In fact, I don't know if you guys ever saw Hillary the movie.
Yeah.
I was in that. That was John Ziegler, and that was we talked about that and Hillary, and I've got a lot of very fond Hillary memories. And so yeah, I've got quite a few more that I haven't really. In fact, this is a funny story. When she was running for president against Obama, when I was in the military, there was a personal aide to President Clinton. When I was military Clinton, the personal aide's name was Chris Insko, and I was the military aide. And then I never saw Chris again when I left in 98. I don't know. And Chris called me up out of the blue in 2006 and said, I mean, he found me in Thousand Oaks, California. I haven't talked to him in 8 years, and he said, well, Ken, I said, I'm working for Hillary Clinton. I go, oh, great, Chris, congratulations. He goes, hey, can we count on your support? In 2006, I go, I don't think so. He goes, can we count on you not to come out in opposition? I said, I don't think so. I don't know who I'm going to vote for, but it's not going to be her. And then he disappeared. And what that was her doing her homework. She was trying to figure out, what were the targets on the radar, that might possibly come out. So I don't doubt that if she runs in 2016, I'll probably be back on the radar again. And I welcome that, actually. Yeah.
Your next bestseller will be the one term of Jimmy Carter and the one term of Obama.
I hope so.
Bestseller.
I hope so. I hope so. I haven't really written anything in 2 years. So
You have to wait
it's
until
time.
November.
Do you think she would have been a better president than Obama, though?
Oh God, that's like,
Is your poison?
Satan and Beelzebub. I don't know. I mean, I will tell you this though. I think that if it's not looking good for Obama, I think he's going to dump Biden and pick her for the VP.
Really?
Yeah. You watch that happen, and that's going to swing the vote.
Will she take it?
Oh yeah.
Will she take it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she will. Yes, sir.
Recently, there was the war games in the Arctic with Russia. We have Russia and China groups, or they more allies than we would think, and actually, how does it face us? Because, as we know, China has a lot of money to stamp up their military. And what's the situation with Russia?
The question is Russia and China's relationship and how it affects us. They have never been friends, but the enemy of my friend is my friend kind of thing.
Right.
The friend of my enemy is my friend. And that's what Russia and China are doing right now, especially with Putin back in the office. And Putin cannot stand Obama. So there's no respect there whatsoever. So they all think he's just weak, and they're exactly right. He can be rolled.
What was that off the mic comment though that he would have more?
He was having that wasn't with Putin though. That was with one of the.
With Medvedev. I know,
Yeah.
but what was he? Do you know what he was alluding?
He was talking about after the election, he'll work more with them in terms of Iran and what's going on.
Be more flexible.
Be more flexible, yeah.
With Iran?
Yes.
Wow.
Because they get a lot of money from Russia gets a lot of oil from Iran. Huge oil. In fact, that's where Iran gets all of their air defenses. A lot of their military capability is Russian. It's not coming from us or anybody else. Nobody else can make it. So it's got to come from us, or from Russia. So they've been in cahoots for a long time. I mean, going back to the Shah. In fact, the Russian air defenses right now, the Iranian air defenses right now are very, very robust. They can shoot down American jets because they're Russian made. The Iranian Air Force is not all that hot, but they're much better than Iraq.
We have time for 2 more questions, but before we do those last 2 questions, would you pass around the hat, and anyone who hasn't donated yet, if you could throw something in the hat to support us for the food and the chairs and the hat, we'd appreciate it.
I love the hat.
Thank you. 2 more questions. Who's got a question?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. The hostess.
Yes, well, I guess my question is like a big overriding question. Do you think that Obama's goal, do you think that he's either just mismanaging everything or that his actual goal is to sort of level us to everyone else on Earth and then those that can't catch up so that we're no longer predominant, or, the peacekeeper?
Can I answer yes to both? I think he's way in over his head and also wants to neutralize America. I don't think he understands what we're all about. I think he's of the one world order approach. I also think he's a blithering idiot and has had no experience running anything in his life. I mean, anybody in this room has had more experience running a business or an organization. He's had zero. He is.
Do you think there's someone behind Obama that's directing him militarily and
well, the guy George Soros has the little. He's got the puppet strings. In fact, George Soros was the guy that convinced Obama to run and gave him all the money initially. Really? And got him into California to start raising money in Hollywood. And for the folks that live in Santa Monica, are you guys aware of Code Pink?
Yeah.
Jody Evans, for those who don't know, Code Pink is a very radical, anti-military, anti-U.S. organization in Santa Monica. Jody Evans is a co-founder. Jody Evans was Barack Obama's biggest bundler, raising money in 2006, 2008, 2007, 2008. And Jody Evans is the most abhorrent human being I can possibly imagine, and she lives in Santa Monica. During the Battle of Fallujah in 2005, Code Pink took money over and gave it to the terrorists that were fighting and killing U.S. Marines in Fallujah. Jody Evans and Medea Benjamin and Code Pink took $600,000 and gave it to the terrorists that were fighting and killing U.S. Marines. Now, if that's not treason, I don't know what is. And nobody called that out. The French press talked about it, but the Washington Post, no. LA Times, no.
And Code Pink was in Tahrir Square the day of the
Yes. They've been very active in Egypt. They're a very radical, anti-democratic organization run by two whack jobs. I actually met Medea Benjamin in Berkeley. They were trying to close down the Marine Corps recruiting station, which wasn't even on campus. It's downtown Berkeley. So we were there to oppose that and to support the Marine Corps. And I met Medea Benjamin, and she's a little, but she's got a lot of Soros money, a lot of money. And they, Code Pink works for, there's all kinds of organizations that are funded by Soros on the left. His Open Societies Institute, they have Unite for Peace and Justice, MoveOn.org, Media Matters, Tides, Ford Foundation. I mean, there is a huge network of leftists that are funded big time by Soros and his like. And she's also, I mean, there's an organization called Center for American Progress in Washington, D.C., which is Soros founded also, which is run by John Podesta, who was the chief of staff of the White House when I was there. They gave birth to Media Matters, which attacks people like me constantly, and David Horowitz. And it's a straight left-wing 501c3, which is totally political.
That's what Van Jones is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Podesta and Van Jones, and so is Sandy Berger's working for him.
That's right.
So it's a pretty elaborate network. Yes, sir.
Who, if Romney wins, who would make a good Secretary of Defense and Attorney General, in your view?
Well, I hope Marco Rubio is the VP.
Yeah.
I hope so too. Secretary of Defense, I think actually Newt would probably be pretty good at that.
Oh, wow.
I'd like to see that. I'd like to see him going head to head with some of those other people.
Secretary of State?
Secretary of State, that's a good question. Let's think about that. Bolton would be good. Yeah, I like Bolton. I like Bolton a lot, actually. I mean, Gingrich and Bolton? Can you imagine? That'd be rock and roll. I love that. Yes, sir. China. Yeah, China.
They own 75% of
They own us, and they have a burgeoning military that dwarfs us. And the saving grace with China is they're trying to build airplanes that don't fly. They keep crashing airplanes. Now they do have missiles that can hit the western United States that we gave, that President Clinton gave them the technology to in the 90s for fundraising. L'Oreal's, Richardson and Clinton gave them the ability to target. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that, in my mind, in my time at the White House, we got focused on Monica Lewinsky and missed the big game. The big game was the fundraising and the stuff we gave to China. And how much, in North Korea also, we gave them the ability to launch weapons that can hit the U.S.
Rockets still don't fly up, stay up.
North Korea's don't, China's do.
Well, China.
And China has aircraft carriers and submarines now too. Yeah, they're a very formidable force. The only thing that would prevent them from attacking us is they own us. So they own all our condos and real estate.
Iran and Venezuela.
This is the last one, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay, the Iran, Venezuela, also North Korea, and Pakistan combo. They have been trading secrets in nuclear technology for years, especially North Korea to Pakistan. Remember Omar Khan? who was the Pakistani scientist and engineer. He gave information to North Korea, who's now passed it on to Venezuela. It's just this triangle of evil. You know, President Bush called it the axis of evil. That's definitely the case. And we refuse currently to do anything about it. I mean, again, we're giving food to North Korea for them to stop their development. That's not done anything. And we refuse to deal with Iran. And it's going to be too late, in my estimation. Something's going to happen. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I've got young kids at home. But I don't think this is going to go well, especially if we don't elect somebody other than Barack Obama this year. I think we are unraveling as a country, and we're getting to the point of no return as a country. And I talk about this in my most recent book. You know, you look at civilizations that fail. You look at Rome. You know, you look at Greece. You look at Egypt. There's a common denominator there. And we are reaching that as a nation, and as a belief system, and as a country. And we are rapidly approaching the precipice. If you guys ever read Victor Davis Hanson, who I think is a brilliant columnist, yeah, he talks about this all the time. And we are right, you know, he calls Europe a museum. And that's what they are. They're a broke museum currently, but they're a museum, and we're going to be a museum here in about 10 years if we don't turn this thing around. I want to thank you all very, very much.